Okay, welcome to part 2 of political parties. Picking up where we left off last week, things that protect the right to vote. There's congressional legislation that will protect the right to vote. There are state laws that will protect the right to vote. There's local things done by local board of elections in each county that will protect the right to vote. But what really counts are the amendments, the 15th, 19th, 24th, and 26th amendments, because those are encoded in the Constitution, and because it's in the Constitution, no law can change the rights that are bestowed with these amendments. Okay, the 15th Amendment gave African-American men the right to vote. That was passed right after the Civil War. 19th Amendment gave the right to vote to women. 24th said no poll taxes can be used to prevent somebody from voting. So it used to be that some states, especially southern states, would enact poll taxes, and they would make voting so expensive. You'd have to pay it at the poll the day you voted, and if you didn't have the money, you couldn't vote. So what they use this to discriminate against African Americans. They would make their poll taxes real high, and that they knew they couldn't afford it, so they had to turn them away at the voting booth. So that was a way to keep blacks from voting. That was wiped out by the 24th Amendment. And the 26th Amendment lowered the voting age from 21 down to 18, which is where it currently sits today. Okay, there are lots of federal policies and laws concerning campaigns and elections, especially campaigns, especially campaign finance. There are lots of limits on how much somebody can give to an individual candidate. There's sunshine laws that say that if you give money to a candidate, the candidate has to report it to the Federal Elections Commission, which is a branch of the, not a branch, but an arm of the executive branch. There are several of these, we could take a whole year going over these policies. We're not going to, just a little bit. When you do the website work this week, or maybe it was last week, there's more information in there about some of these laws and so forth. Okay, now, modern elections. So in the last 30 years, this is what's happened with elections, especially national elections. They depend on professional consultants. So the first thing somebody decides to, well, actually before they decide to run for office, they will consult with a political consultant, and that consultant will tell them, okay, if you want to win this Senate seat, if you want to win the presidency, if you want to become mayor of your town, here's what I think you should do. Okay, it's called an exploratory committee. And once the candidate feels like, okay, I think I can do this, they'll announce that they are running for office. There's also, the second one says there's rising costs and intensive fundraising. They are literally, the presidential election cost $1 billion, about $500 million for each Republican and Democratic candidate. Now, the lower the office is, the least amount that somebody has to spend on that. But if somebody, is running for Senate, they're spending tens of millions of dollars. House of Representatives, same thing. If you're running for a state senator or state House of Representatives, you're probably going to raise upwards of $1 million. If you're running for mayor of a big town like New York City, it might cost you millions. If you're running for mayor of, some little town, it might not cost you that much. It might, $50,000 or something like that. But why does it cost so much? Well, you got to get your name out there. Last week we talked about candidate-centered politics. That's the focus. You want to get your name out there. You want to get your idea out there. You want to get your theme out there. Okay, that costs money. You have to have a staff that helps you run for office. Commercials cost money on television. Advertisements on the web cost money. Okay, so a lot of times what will happen, especially in the House of Representatives, because they have 2-year terms, is almost immediately somebody who wants to, they're in the House of Representatives, they want to run for a second term, almost immediately into their current term, they start fundraising. And they do this by holding dinners, speaking, to a crowd, hosting, parties and so forth. It's a never-ending job to do that. Election cycles are getting longer. Let's look at the presidential election. We just elected President Biden. The news is already talking about, well, who's going to run in 2024? And actually, after the 2022 midterm elections, where we elect a new Congress, House of Representatives, and a third of the Senate, after that 2022 election, people will start saying, I'm running for president. It's a 2-year process. These election cycles are getting longer and longer, which is why it costs more and more money to run a campaign. And more people running for election are using social media. And that is a way that you can bypass the media. Social media is free, doesn't cost money, and you send your message directly to the voters at that point. Okay. Now here's a new term I'm going to introduce. It's called Linkage Institution. A linkage institution is an organization, a group that connects politicians and politics to the voters. Okay. So political parties are a linkage institution. That's what we're going to be talking about for the next 3 or 4 weeks, are these linkage institutions. Okay. Political parties connect politicians to the people. Politicians cannot get into office unless they get votes from the people. So they look for ways to connect with the people. And it allows people to get involved in politics as well. You can, if you're a political person, get involved in somebody's political campaign. Once they win election office, you can become part of their staff. So this is that's why political parties are called a linkage institution. Okay, now there are third parties in the United States. They've been around for a long time, since the beginning of the Republic. And there's really 4 types of third parties. First one is an ideological party. They are focused on a core set of beliefs. The best example is the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party is a very conservative party. Libertarians believe in the smallest government possible. That's their philosophy. If there doesn't need to be a government law, then don't pass it. Okay? They believe very much in personal freedom. There are single issue parties. The oldest political party in the United States are not the Democrats, are not the Republicans. The Republicans call themselves the GOP, the Grand Old Party. That's what that stands for. The Prohibition Party's been around since before them. They are still around. The Prohibition Party, their idea was to ban alcohol in the United States. They won that with an amendment to the Constitution, but that was a failed issue. But they're still around today. They are a very religious and a very, very conservative party. Part of their platform still is it calls for an end to alcohol and drug abuse. There are protest parties. They spring up in response to a certain situation or a law that was passed. When Obamacare was passed, the Affordable Care Act, the Tea Party became a protest party. T stands for taxed enough already, and they were a branch of the Republican Party, and they wanted government to stop spending money and to stop passing laws that impede what they believe was people's personal freedoms. The best example, though, is the Reform Party that was initiated in 1996. The 1996 presidential election was started by, I can't think of the guy's name. He ran as a third-party candidate, Ross Perot, in 1992 and 1996. He lost both times, but his idea was the government needs to balance the budget. The government needs to stop spending more money than it's taking in taxes. Okay. In 2000, they actually ran people for the Reform Party ran people for president. Like I said, in 1996, it was Ross Perot again. In 2000, they ran somebody you may have heard of named Donald Trump. 2016 was not the first time that Donald Trump ran for president. He was the Reform Party's candidate for president in 2000. Okay, and then there's splinter parties. They break away from the larger party. There was the Dixiecrats in 1947, when the Democratic Party put civil rights in their party platform, their national party platform. A group of Democrats broke away, Southern Democrats, segregationists, and they called themselves the Dixiecrats. I have Tea Party under a splinter party. Although I would, since I've done this PowerPoint, I would move them into the protest party area. Okay? And you can see here on this slide, I'm not going to go through all these, but there have been lots of minor parties in the United States that have run people for president. Okay? Realigning elections. These are elections that change the face of American politics. What they do is they bring either more people into the electorate, like the Jacksonian Democrats did. They changed the national debate, like the Republican Party did in 1860. That led to the Civil War. You have, sometimes they create new coalitions. The New Deal, the Democratic Party created a new coalition. People that generally voted for Republicans now started to vote for Democrats. Currently, though, we have divided government, and this should not be news to you. We swing from Republican rule to Democratic rule, back to Republican rule, to Democratic rule. It seems like every 2 years we do this. It's because the American people are so politically divided. It leads to pretty quick swings in the electorate. Okay? Basically what happens is, I look at the Senate right now. It's 50 Republicans, 50 Democrats. The Democrats are the ones that are considered to have the majority because Kamala Harris, the vice president, gets to cast a tie-breaking vote. So they have one more vote in the Senate than the Republicans do. But the Republicans are very close to retaking the Senate. They'll probably try to do that in 2022 in the next presidential election. So their incentive is, as much as politicians like to say, we need to work together. Their incentive is not to work together. Their incentive is to be, and Democrats do this too, not to go along with what the other party agrees, because all you got to do is wait until the next election. You're so close to taking the House or retaking the Senate that you don't cooperate. You just hold out and say, they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong, and then more of your voters come out and you win control of that governing body. Okay? So the results of all this is partisan realignment and de-alignment. Okay? So we're in the process of de-alignment, where party preferences are weakened. More and more voters are voting sometimes Republican, sometimes Democrat. I know that I've seen people interviewed who in 2008 and 2012 voted for Barack Obama for president. In 2016, they voted for Donald Trump. So they jump ship from Republican to Democrat, even sometimes in the same election. On their ticket that they're voting, they might vote for some Republicans and some Democrats. So we talked about this last week. About a third of the electorate are Democrats, about a third are Republicans, but a third, probably even more than that now, are independents because of this de-alignment movement. And that has a lot to do with these candidate-centered campaigns. You don't pay attention to the party, you pay attention to the person running. And that person running, if they can get that third of the electorate that are independents to vote for them, they're probably going to win the election. Okay. Okay. So this next part is about how parties raise and spend money. Again, I'm gonna defer to the website and the videos I had you guys watch. There's a difference though between hard money and soft money. Soft money is money that's given to a party, and that is in unlimited amounts. So you would give $1 million to the Republican National Committee, and the Republican National Committee can divvy out that money as much as they can to whoever they want. Hard money is given directly to a candidate. Hard money there's limits on that. It might be a $5,000 limit that you can give to a candidate. Okay, that's hard money. Candidates have to report not only who donates to them, but what they spend their money on, and they have to spend that money on their campaign. They can't decide, my house needs a new roof. I'm going to take some of my campaign funds and take $10,000 and put a new roof on my house. That's illegal. In fact, there was a senator in Alaska about 15 years ago that got in trouble for that, and he had to resign his office. So you have to spend it on your campaign. If you have any money left over after the campaign, you still can't spend that on yourself. You have to spend it on either your next campaign, keep it in the bank and spend it on your next campaign, or give it to the party, the national party, and they can divvy it out as well. This big case, Citizens United versus the FEC, Federal Elections Commission, is a key case that you need to know when you study the judicial branch. I won't review that, but that was basically said that you can't put limits on corporations and unions and other organizations on giving money to people running for office. Okay, that's the end of the political parties. If you have any questions, come into office hours or send me an email.